What if I told you that a single day in September completely transformed not just the presidency, but the entire course of American history, Ben? The story of George W. Bush's presidency shows how unexpected events can rewrite even the most carefully planned political agendas.
That's such a fascinating way to look at it, Pappy. Here's Bush, 8 months into his presidency, focusing on education reform and domestic policy, when suddenly everything changes on September 11th.
You know what's really striking about that moment? There's this famous photograph of Bush being told about the second plane while reading to elementary school students in Florida. The transformation in his expression tells the whole story. You can literally see the weight of history settle on his shoulders in that instant.
And then just 3 days later, he had that incredible moment at Ground Zero with the bullhorn. It really captured the national mood.
That's exactly right. And what's fascinating is how quickly things moved from there. Within weeks, we were launching Operation Enduring Freedom in Afghanistan. By 2003, we were invading Iraq. The speed of these massive military operations was unprecedented in modern American history.
Though that speed might have been part of the problem, especially with Iraq, the whole WMD justification turned out to be completely wrong.
Well, that's where things get really interesting. The Iraq War became this massive turning point. We went from having unprecedented national unity after 9/11 to some of the deepest political divisions we'd seen in generations. And here's a surprising detail. By 2008, the Iraq War had cost over $3 trillion, far more than the initial estimates of 50 to 60 billion dollars.
Speaking of costs, what about the domestic front? The creation of the Department of Homeland Security was massive.
Oh, absolutely. It was the most significant government reorganization since the Department of Defense was created in 1947. And let's talk about something that often gets overlooked, his PEPFAR initiative. This program has saved an estimated 20 million lives in Africa through HIV, AIDS treatment, and prevention. It's fascinating how this huge humanitarian success gets overshadowed by the wars and controversies.
That really shows the complexity of his presidency. You've got significant controversies like the Patriot Act and enhanced interrogation techniques, but also genuinely positive achievements.
And then you got Hurricane Katrina in 2005. Over 1,800 people died, and the federal response was widely criticized. The image of Bush flying over New Orleans rather than landing became a powerful symbol of disconnection. But here's what's interesting. After Katrina, Bush actually signed primary reform legislation to overhaul FEMA's disaster response capabilities.
And when things couldn't get more challenging, the 2008 financial crisis hit. The numbers there were staggering.
You're right about that. The $700 billion TARP bailout was unprecedented. But here's something fascinating. Bush actually went against his own free market principles to push it through. He later said, I've abandoned free market principles to save the free market system. That really shows how a crisis can force presidents to act against their own ideology, doesn't it? Exactly. And it's worth noting that his father's presidency faced similar challenges, but handled them very differently. The first Gulf War was quick and decisive, while the second, Iraq War, became a protracted, complicated conflict that's still influencing Middle East politics today.
And what about his legacy since leaving office? His approach to post presidency has been quite different from that of other former presidents.
That's one of the most intriguing parts. He's focused on painting portraits of veterans, has mainly stayed out of politics, and has maintained this dignified distance from partisan battles. It's quite a contrast to how politically active some other former presidents have remained.
So, looking back, how do you think history will ultimately judge his presidency?
Well, that's a fascinating question. His presidency really marked the beginning of our current political era. The debate over security versus privacy, America's role in promoting democracy abroad, and the limits of executive power. Whether you agree with his decisions or not, the world fundamentally changed during those 8 years, and we're still living with the consequences today.
And those changes continue to shape our current political debates, don't they, Pappy?
Absolutely correct, Ben. From the ongoing discussions about surveillance and privacy to questions about American intervention abroad, the ripple effects of those 8 years continue to influence our world. Perhaps that's the most important legacy of the Bush presidency, how decisions made in moments of crisis can reshape society for generations to come.